Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. My name is John Pieranunzi, and this is the opening swing. Let's begin today, as we always do, with our news. Out of Europe, we had several PMIs, Purchasing Managers Indexes, coming out from a few countries. Europe is slightly firmer, about 0.5 to 1% up from yesterday's sell-off in Europe. Coming into our US hours, we had mortgage applications, they're already out, and we have the ADP employment report at 8:15. ADP is a payroll company, a very large payroll company that releases their figures ahead of NFP. It's kind of like a little junior NFP, but it's not really a mover because it's only one company. Although sometimes it can surprise, so we're aware of it. Then we have the US PMI, Purchasing Managers Index, at 9:45, shortly after the bell. 10 a.m. Eastern, we have the ISM Services Index. 10:30, we have the petroleum report for oil traders, and we also have a 4-month auction a little later on. So the morning will likely have the bulk of the action today. Let's take a look at some larger time frame charts. And we'll begin with the monthly, which is, I've been looking at this one a lot. But the reason I'm looking at the monthly is yesterday, and pretty much what I've been saying, the monthly chart, I would describe this condition as balanced with a skew for higher prices because the range in the monthly chart is mostly overlapping. However, we have respected the prior month's low and we have been able to trade the prior month's high. So what I kind of said from that, just big picture, is that the tests that we're looking for in the monthly time frame are either the 50%, which is basically the 5200, or the prior month's high, which is the all-time high. I was expecting at some point over the course of this month, or at some point, a test of one of these two areas is the next step on the monthly chart. And just a very simple, straightforward LIS, we have the upper quartile 75% mark, which is at 52.85, which is also a price that we're aware of. The 85s, 85, 86 region is an area we've been talking about. It's also right around the close of the prior month. So as long as we hold above this prior month's close and we hold above 75% in the upper quartile, we'll expect price to work higher and we'll give a little bit better odds to a test of the high on this time frame. Let's drop to the weekly. What's going on the weekly time frame? So the weekly, this retracement is basically just the month of May. And as you can see, we dropped down, attempted to test the 5200s. This was still during May, and we rejected for higher prices. And now we're actually trading near the prior week's open. We're above the prior week's 50% line, above the key 64 to 73 area that I've been talking about. So the weekly chart, we are beginning to trend lower, beginning to retrace, but this is the first pullback from a new high. So we're aware of that, and this test below may be a rejection of prices below the 5250 region. So we're aware of that, and so for me, as long as we stay above these 52.85 region and really the 64 to 73, I'm open to a test of the prior week's high. If we start to drop below, then that may change, but that's what I'm seeing on the weekly as of right now. Moving on to our daily. What are we looking at on the daily chart? So here I've drawn, Here I've drawn, this is our prior week's range. We have the prior week's high, the 50% line of the prior week's low. So here what we see is the daily chart had been trending lower. First pullback from our all-time highs. We tested down. I was talking about the 52.16s as a key area. We got that test and very quickly seemingly rejected prices to trade back above the 52.50 region. The other area I mentioned was this 52, the 5280s, 85 area. It's right here. We've also settled above it. We settled above 5,300. So the daily chart is actually one time framing higher. And for me today, the settlement again is a very important price early. If we hold above settlement, then we're looking for a grind excursion higher. We're looking for 25s, which is an MCV POC region. Above that, we're looking at the 33s, the price I've talked about a lot, and then our prior week's high. If we revert lower, we're looking at our auction levels within this prior day's candle. So let's move to our structures chart and take a little bit closer of a look at all of this. Okay, here is our 2-hour chart, which I've been using as structure. Here we can see the prior day's high and the prior day's low. And what we're kind of looking at here on this price action structure is we see our all-time high, which we put in, and then a very pretty significant rejection lower, an attempt to regain this basically 34 to 45 area. I talked a lot about this area is being resistance. Got the impulse lower, retraced higher, tested into that area, the resistance remains, and we took out our low. Below the low, we continued. However, we're starting to see in this area, which I mentioned yesterday, some more aggressive pushes higher. The pushes higher are gaining. We have this push, this push, this push, and now this push. So we're noticing that as we pushed into below that 5250 region and we got our 5212.16 test, there was a strong response by buyers, and they were able to gain significantly more ground. And now we are actually, after the pullback held the higher low, and we are able to continue higher. And as of this moment, we are trading above the prior day's RTH high, noting that our settlement was 5304 above the 5300 mark. So that's relatively bullish. It looks like we found some buyers and we're pushing higher to find our sellers. Where were our sellers the last time we checked? They were above the 33 halves. That's where our sellers started to get interested. We also have our MCV POC magnet zone region here, right in the 19 to 25 region. We also have the naked VPOC from I believe it's the 28th, somewhere in here. We have a naked VPOC around 25. So there are tests to be made in this area. A very big picture on this chart, however, what we're seeing is as we push lower, the response by buyers has gotten stronger and we've held that low. So right now we are retracing, and my expectation if we hold above settlement is for us to push to the 25s and potentially higher. If we drop below settlement, then I will be looking at a test of the prior VPOC, which is here at 33, also in confluence with our 2-day ETH VWAP. If that area does not find support and continued higher lows, then we may see price continue lower. We'll go over that on the smaller time frame charts. The keys to recognize right here on this chart are just that once we got that test below the 5250s, the buyers responded and we've seen higher lows, and we are now kind of grinding our way back up into that prior area that I talked about, 5304 up to 5349. Talked about this area a lot. This is where we've seen the sellers. So far, things do change. They do. So let's continue to our trigger chart and talk about specific price action today. Okay, here we are on our trigger chart. What areas are important? Okay, important area right here. Settlement up to yesterday's high, 04s to 12s, key area right here. Below our prior week's VPOC to our 2-day VWAP, which is basically 83 half up to 90s, but obviously the 2-day VWAP will shift, so we're aware of that. 2-day VWAP, or I'm sorry, yesterday's RTH low. Then we drop into this 49 to 55 area, which I've marked out as an area where we might see support if we get a higher low, if we would happen to get a higher low versus this low. prior week's low is down here. Noting that we have our volatility bands. This is one vola down, and this is two vola down. I'm noting that because the volatility has contracted quite a bit. This is the volatility. One vola is only like 27 ES points, significantly higher more recently. Here we have our naked VPOC from, like I said, around the 28th, I think. Then we have our key area at 33.5 up to 39, and we'll take it the whole way up to the 42s, this region. Then we have our 47s to 52s, which is really the last line of defense against the all-time high. We have our RTH all-time high right up here, along with a naked VPOC from the overnight session corresponding. So anyway, these are our key areas here. Now, we'll go over a bullish scenario first. And obviously, the most bullish scenario would be if we just respect the area that we think we should respect if we're bullish, which is the RTH high to the prior settle. So something like that, what we may get here is we have this naked VPOC and we have yesterday's high. One of these two, potentially both, are going to get tested at some point. So what we may see is a push higher that tests into this naked VPOC, pulls back, and respects this area. Or we could see some type of a pullback ahead of that doesn't quite get there or whatnot, and pushes higher to our NVPOC. But regardless, the key is if we push higher and we're respecting yesterday's range, that we're going to expect the same kind of action that we've seen quite a bit of, which is just a grind higher, looking to find whatever prices sellers want to aggressively participate in. So anytime, like I've mentioned, we see this, we're always on the lookout for an impulsive move lower that takes out the prior low, cannot get the prior high, and then we're looking for this to shift. So again, I just mentioned this because this is always something that we need to be aware of when we're looking at price action like this. But regardless, if we get the bullish scenario and we stay above the prior settle and the prior high, we are looking for tests of first the 25s, naked VPOC, then I'll look for tests of 33 halves. If we don't see resistance, this is an area we could see quite a bit of resistance ahead of the prior week's high. It could happen with an impulsive move here that drops back below the naked VPOC, can't get there, closes the gap. Could happen like that, or it could push higher, test prices above the prior week's high, make another attempt, and then start to come off. So this prior week's high is an area where I would expect resistance. If we do not see that resistance, then obviously the next area that we're looking for is this 47 to 52 region. This would be an extended target for me today. This would be a pretty nice move today. Very possible, very possible. And if we're able to get that test, I would expect any excursion beyond this to just be very grindy. Our target would be the all-time high, which is the 53.58s, and I would expect it to be some pretty grindy action up to there if we get that. This is all if we stay above, obviously, our RTH high and settlement. Now, the other scenario, obviously, is just sort of the opposite. If we make some test, we could get this naked VPOC test. We could get it early. We could get it overnight. Maybe even a bit of a push through. But then we're looking for, if things get bearish, we're looking for a reversion lower, potentially a gap close or near it. Any type of a attempt to get back out of that doesn't get above FS levels would still remain bearish. And so if we get that test and we cannot find support on the prior day's high, then we are looking for a test of the settlement, prior day's settlement. Obviously now if we continue to be able or we can continue to be unable to find support and we've dropped back through Century, then we are looking for this area, basically the 80s to 90s, that broad region, which holds the prior week's VPOC, holds prior week's VPOC, holds yesterday's VPOC. So this is the area that we would look for a test if we drop below the 5,300 level. We'd look for tests into the 80s or 90s. This would also hold the series of higher lows. So a test right here would hold that. And that could be a place where we find buyers and continue higher. So that would be the key test area if we drop into a range. If we drop into there and we don't find buyers in this area, I would expect it to get pretty messy and then potentially get the test lower somewhere towards yesterday's low into the 75, 73 region, this area right here. Again, this would be an area where I would potentially expect some support. It would also be one vola down. If we continue through yesterday's low, the key test below yesterday's low would be these 64s. If we continue through these 64s, and if we continue below 64s, obviously the 49s to 55s, if we somehow get this test, I'm not really expecting it, it's possible, but if we get this 49 to 55 test, I would expect support on the initial test. If we get it today, I'm not expecting it, it's very possible, but my primary expectation would be support. It would obviously be contextual though, depending on the price action. With any excursion below this 49s, I would be looking at zones to guide me, with the key zone being the down here at the 52.38s. It's our key support and it's the prior week's low. I would be very surprised to see price push below that today. Very possible. I would be surprised if it happens. Surprises are often good. So let's just keep that in mind. So this is the generally what I'm looking at. Let's go over that very quickly again. We have this area as just the key over underline, which is prior settle to the prior high. Our first important test, the naked VPOC. Our next important test, 33 halves. Above that, we have the prior week's high. Below, we have the prior week's VPOC and yesterday's VPOC as our test area. Falling below that, then we're looking at 73s to 75s for a potential higher low versus yesterday's low. If not, we're looking at a test of yesterday's low, a test of the 64s, and then if those give way, 55s to 49s. This is generally what we're looking for today. Now I'm going to add something else. When we have a very clear and obvious LIS region, like we do here, and like we've had several times, we often get, it's great if we get the clear directional move away. Sometimes it happens like pre-market, like we might be getting it right now. Sometimes it happens pre-market, sometimes it happens in a very convoluted way. But what we want to be aware of is we want to identify first, are we making a directional move away from this area? In either way that might happen. Are we directionally moving away from it? Or are we just chopping around it? And that's the most important thing to identify. Are we getting a directional move, or are we getting some type of a choppy sort of action? If we get action like this, then obviously we know we're looking more for outside in scalps and stat-based targets than we are for directional movement. Which directional movement is obviously more like move, here's our next target, balance, pull back, reject, continue higher, clear directional movement. This is really basic stuff, but honestly, the basic stuff is super important. You need to identify what you're trading. Are we reacting to this key area in a directional way, or are we just chopping around it? That's job one to figure out today if you're trading the S&Ps. That is job one. I'm gonna cut it off here because I've went pretty long, and I think that we've pretty much described the potential price action as best we can today. We're looking at this area as a potential LIS. We would like to see the market aggressively move away from it and give us a setup towards our targets. And if we instead just chop around it, then we'll be a little bit more conservative and look for, at least me, I'll be more conservative. I'll look for tighter trades. I won't have runners. I'll look to just take out stats and be a little bit lighter and tighter. That's how I'll do it today. But we each have to make our own plans. This is all I have to say for the price action today, so I think that's relatively complete. Let me think if there's anything else that I wanted to mention. I think that's it for today without going too long. So that's what we got for you. Key area settlement to yesterday's high, looking for a directional move away towards our targets. We know the targets. If it chops around it, we're looking for our outside in. We're using our outside in trades. So that's what I got. I hope everyone is doing well today. I hope that everyone has a really good morning in progress, and I hope that continues into the trading day so that you can improve a little bit today, get a little bit better than you used to be. And I hope, of course, you can make other people's day better as well and make other people smile, because that's really the key. So that's what I have for you today. I hope this helps in some way, and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.